Hello and welcome to a special edition of the ESPN Footy Podcast. We have an epic Brownlow Medal preview coming your way today. I'm Jarryd Barca. Jake Michaels is the brains behind ESPN's massive Brownlow Medal predictor. So he's here to join us to dissect that predictor, to find you guys a winner, and to do a whole lot more. Jake, welcome to you. It's your time to shine. This is your time of the year. How excited are you with 4 sleeps to go?
Thank you. I feel like Jasper during the AFL draft. It's everything you work towards throughout the year. You finally have to see it unfold and see what you got right, see what you got wrong. And it's a lot of fun. I love doing it throughout the year. The predictor, which you can obviously see online on espn.com.au/AFL. It's a lot of fun. Can't wait.
So for a lot of people, the Brownlow Medal is a bit of a long night. It's a bit of a marathon, but you love it, obviously. So where does it stem from for you? Why are you so hooked? You've been doing the predictor for a very long time. It always does really well. You put in a mountain of work and research into this. What is it about the Brownlow that really, just fascinates you, I guess?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it started when I was a kid. I just remember being 5-6 years old, sitting on the couch, watching it and just being enthralled by the votes and by the unpredictability of it.
I am one of the people that do enjoy the night, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm in the minority too.
Yeah, but it feels like the minority because I hear a lot of people love to slag the Brownlow off, but they still watch it. They still come Tuesday morning, they still what a count it was last night. So I think it's one of those things everyone likes to just sort of crap on, but secretly if you're a footy fan, I think you secretly enjoy watching it. But I think it started from a young age, and then as I got older and started watching some of the games, you think, oh yeah, I could see he was the best player on the ground. And then as you watch more games and eventually start watching all the games, you start to think, well, why can't I try and predict this and have a bit of fun doing it? And that's probably where it started. And did the first predictor 9 years ago, more as a passion project for myself, not as part of ESPN. And I think over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had it on ESPN. So as you say, a lot of work goes in, a lot of time, but I love doing it. I really do.
How nervous do you get when you wake up on the Monday mornings?
Very. Because it's not so much your credibility and reputation's on the line, but it sort of is.
You still want to be right, though.
You want to be right, and it's not just. I think a lot of people will think if you have the top 20 and you get every one of the top 20 in order, but first and second you flip them around, everyone will say you got it wrong.
Yeah.
But that's not how I look at it. I look at it as you want to get the top 10, 20, 30, whatever it might be, as close to accurate as possible, and you want to get every player. If you've got X player on 15 votes and they get 16, then that's a tick. That's pretty well done. So you want to get every player as close to the mark as you possibly can to get as close to the real leaderboard as you possibly can. And that's what my aim is when I do it.
Yep. So we're looking at your spreadsheet in front of us here. Before we really do dive into this, though, some people know, some people won't. How does the predictor work? You do it a lot differently, or a bit differently to some of the other predictors that are out there.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time, you watch every game. What is your process? You update this every single week. I mean, how does it all work? Because you do give the 0.5 half votes. Some people might not understand why that is, but
there's still a little bit of feedback about that. People are a little unsure how that works, and they don't call that a half vote on Brownlow night. Yeah, I am aware of that. I do have watched before. I know how it works. Still 6 votes are given out per game, but instead of 3, 2, 1, which a lot of people do, as you said, I break it down a little bit more. So I find that if you have two players absolutely dominate the game, you don't know which one it's going to be, I give them both 2.5 votes rather than giving 1, 3 and 1, 2. Because if you get it wrong, it's a full 1 vote switch, whereas it's 0.5 for both. And over the course of the whole season, over the course of 24, 25 rounds, you find that it reduces your margin for error. So I think you get more and more accurate as you go along throughout the year. And it's the same with, you might have 3 players that you cannot split. 3 clear-cut standouts, give them all 2. So that's how it sort of works for me. I find that I get more accurate results doing it that way. I actually do a 3-2-1, and I have done a 3-2, just a plain straight 3-2-1, which doesn't get published. I do it for myself and have done it every year since I started 9 years ago. And this way is more accurate. The 3-2-1, the kind of older traditional model, although it's what they use, for me at least, it's not as accurate as doing it this other way.
Yep. You see, guys, there is method to the madness before you slag him off again. There is plenty for us to dive into. We'll look at every single team, some surprises we might see, some of your best bets. And by the way, as we already said, you can still check out Jake's predictor on espn.com.au/AFL. And a reminder, this is a gambling-heavy podcast, so If you do choose to do so and have a bet, please do so responsibly. Jake, we're going to start with your top 10. Take us through it, and how close is the race this year?
Oh, it's very close, but I think it is still a race in two. I've got Patrick Crips winning it on 34 votes, so obviously it would be for the second time, ahead of Nick Dacos on 32.5. So 1.5, pretty close. Can see that one going either way. So it's one of those ones, like I said before, you could get everything right, and if those two flip around, it looks like you've failed. But I think it's going to go to one of those two, I think. And I don't think that's outrageous. I think most people have them 1 and 2 on theirs. Third, I've got Lockie Neal, and we know how well he performs on Brownlow night. He's on 29 votes. Fourth, Isaac Heaney, 28.5. Absolutely flew out of the blocks. First half of the season was just insane. He might have 20 votes by around 10 or 11. And then Marcus Bontempelli, fifth on 28, so just another half vote behind there. Once again, star of the comp, polls well. Would expect nothing less this year, but probably just 1 or 2 big games short of what he probably needed.
Yep.
Sixth is Caleb Sarong on 23.5, so a bit of a drop there, from fifth to sixth. So bear that in mind for a bit later. Seventh is Errol Goulden. It's actually a tied sixth. It's Goulden and Sarong on 23.5. Tom Green, 8th on 23. 9th, Zach Merritt, 22.5. And 10th is Noah Anderson on 21.5.
So that's your top 10. They're all above 20, but they are the only 10 that you have polling above 20 this year as well. Look, so you got Patrick Cripps on 34 votes. You've got him polling in 17 games. To the naked eye, I think he's had a better year than he did in 22 when he previously won a Brownlow medal.
Yeah. And that's not crazy. I wrote about this on 6 Points about 4 weeks ago. I think it was just the second last game of the season after he absolutely tore the Eagles to shreds, and compared his numbers to 22. And every single thing, except goals, I think goals was slightly under, but every single thing was up. Everything across the board. So he has had a better season.
So you've got him polling in 17 games. I just want to run through with you some of the previous winners and how many games they actually did poll in. So Lockie Neal last year polled in 14 games when he got 31 votes and won. Going back to 2022, Crips polled in 13 games. Wines polled in 16 games, which got him to the equal record of 36 votes. 13 games. Tom Mitchell polled in 12 games. Dusty Martin polled in 14 games. You've got Crips, again, polling in 17 games. You've got him on 34 votes. Is it fair to say his ceiling this year is breaking the votes record?
Well, the votes record is 36, held by, in the 3-2-1 era. I think they used to do 2 sets of 3-2-1, so they're higher. But in the standard 3-2-1, it's 36, held by Ollie Wines and Dustin Martin. It's not crazy to say he can tie it or break it. I mean, I've got him on 34, so he gets a 2 or a 3 somewhere where we don't expect, then he certainly can. And as you say, 17. If he does poll in 17 games, he's going to have a very good chance of doing it. Do I expect it? No. Would I bet the under if it was set at 36? I would. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gave it a real shake.
It's funny how you mentioned that. Games where you've got him in 17, but he might get 1 where you've got him in 3. He might get 3 where you don't have him polling. And we saw something similar with Lockie Neal last year, didn't we? When the Lions played against the Giants, I think it was round 6 or 7. You had Charlie Cameron kicking 7 goals. I think Josh Kelly might have had 40 touches in that game. Lockie Neal had about 20 and no more than that, but he got the 3 votes.
Yep.
So it's hard to determine what the umpires are thinking. I just think how difficult is it to judge those sort of games when it is a bit even. And Crips had one of those games late against the Saints when he probably didn't have a good first half of the game, but his second half was huge. He could get 1, he could get 3. Dacos is up there in second, and he's pretty similar as well with good games where there weren't really standouts. I mean, do you lean towards the superstars in those sort of games?
You definitely do. I think that's a really good distinction to make. Sometimes I put my votes, so the votes go up on the predictor. It's updated every Monday after the round. It goes the votes for the previous week go up. And people will look, and sometimes people will message me and say, you gave Bont a vote here. Bont was terrible.
Yeah.
It's not what I necessarily think the best 3 players or 4 or 5, however their votes are allocated, are. I'm trying to mirror what the umpires are going to do.
And they've done this before.
And all ties go to superstars. We know that. History tells us that is always the case. The umpires notice the superstars more. The crowd makes more noise when the stars have the ball. We just know that this is the case, and it's been the case throughout history. So ties go to the stars, and we've even by doing it this way, we still find that sometimes I'll give a 1 to and Bont might get 2 in that game.
Yep.
So yeah, you've got to try and do it not necessarily what you think are the best or who you think are the best players, but what you think the umpires are going to do. So. The umpires cop a lot of criticism, right? And that game was the one. That game was the one crazy. That everyone
probably won him the award, right?
Well, if we want to say he shouldn't have got any votes in that game and you take 3 off, then he doesn't win it. So if that's what you're saying, then yes. But I think things even out. Look, I think he probably should have won it the year Crips won it, and he didn't win it. So I think he probably should be 2-time Brownlow medalist anyway, and he isn't. And he is. So. Anyway, you get there in the end. But I think the umpires, they cop a lot of criticism.
It's a hard task.
It's not only is it hard, I think they actually get it right a lot.
Yep.
Far more than we expect, considering they don't get to look at stats. And this is another layer of it which gets forgotten about. Not being able to look at any stats and having to submit the votes. I know from my point of view, and I think a lot of people will probably resonate with this, if you go to a game and you're watching, you can get to half-time and not have checked. Like, if I'm there as a fan and I'm not working and I can watch and not get my phone out, and at half-time I'll get my phone out and look, Massimo D'Ambrosio's had 22 disposals in the first half? I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
So, it's very easy to not know. It's easy to see who's playing well when the stats are in front of you because you start looking for them when they're getting more and more of the ball. It can be really tricky when you've got so many players playing to notice the ones that you may not necessarily notice before the game started. So I think for the most part, 95 times out of 100, they get it right. It's very rare that you have a standout player and they don't get the 3 or at worst the 2. But of course, the ones they get wrong are the ones that people remember.
Of course. Funny you mentioned stats. It's probably a good segue. We're just going to go through your top 10 again very clearly. So Patrick Cripps, Nick Dacos, Lockie Neal, Isaac Heaney, Marcus Bontempelli, Caleb Sarong, Errol Goulden, Tom Green, Zach Merritt, and Noah Anderson is your top 10. But as I said, the stats talk is an interesting one because you have access to it. We have access to it as fans and pundits. The umpires don't. So, look, we've touched on the amount of work that this takes and the research. And again, you get to look at these stats, but you can't read the mind of an umpire. So what is it that you look at when you do your vote? Because it would be different to how the umpires do cast theirs. Are there stats out there that you know bode well when it comes to Brownlow night? So we're calling this the Brownlow standards, and we know that Champion Data has their premiership standards, which is where a team needs to rank top 6 in certain statistical categories in order to be determined a premiership threat that year. And that does stand up season after season. So what are the areas, and you've been working closely with Christian Jolie from Champion Data on this, what are the areas that a player does need to perform well in statistically? What are they, and who's ticking off those boxes this year?
Yeah, well, no, well said. We started to come up with this idea late last year when we spoke a lot about the premiership standards on the pod with Christian, and I sort of said to him, I posed the question, could we do something? Could we look at something like this for the Brownlow? Could we look at past winners and sort of say, what stacks up? What stacks up with winning it? And on the flip side, what doesn't? What are things that we think are valuable that just aren't? And so we spent a lot of time and we looked at a range of different metrics and statistics and went back through the years and had a look at all sorts of stuff. And we sort of found like sort of 9 key categories and then broke those 9 down into the 3 just non-negotiable categories. Now, I won't go into the whole thing because it is quite lengthy, and I think something like this, it reads much better in front of you rather than me speaking it. So please do go and have a read on the website. It's just been published this morning on Thursday. But I can tell you that contested possession, clearance, and centre clearance, those 3 areas, you must be good at. Like, you must be a top 5 player in those areas to win a Brownlow medal.
And that's just what history says too.
That's what history says.
Yeah.
So since 2012, and we go back further, but just for a bit of context, since 2012, this is where every winner has ranked in contested possession for the home and away season. fourth, third, second, third, fourth, third, fourth, third. So all top 5.
Yeah.
All top 4 actually, and not only that, but quite interestingly, they're all top 4, but no one's actually been ranked number 1. No one's been the number 1 ranked, so may not bode well for Patrick Crips. Get to him in a moment. But obviously, quite clearly, contested possession.
Yep.
And it's not surprising, right?
In and under.
You're in and under. You're getting your first hands on the
Yep.
ball. You're winning those 50-50 balls. That is what the umpires value. And on the flip side, you can see, just for a little bit of a contrast, here's where all of those winners ranked in uncontested possession. So going back to 2012, here's where what their ranks were for uncontested possession. 14th, 21st, 39th, 114th, 27th, 32nd, 3rd, 71st, 8th, 16th, 63rd, and also 63rd last year with Neil. So the uncontested stuff isn't rewarded anywhere near the contested stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the main one. And then clearance is the other one. So clearance and contested possession often go hand in hand. Same sort of thing. So we can go back to, we can start at 2010 this time. This is where the clearance ranks are. 3rd, 9th, 3rd, 6th, 2nd, 4th, 4th, 3rd, 1st, 5th, 4th, 8th, 3rd, 1st. Contested possession, clearance, they are the two. And
it's where the umpires are. It's the first thing that they're seeing when a play starts as well. So it makes sense that that's what you need to be good at to win a Brownlow.
100%. And we also look at disposals, score involvements, inside 50s, and a few other things. And we sort of have a look at what the areas are, and then we've applied it to this year. So if we've got what we know are sort of the non-negotiables, and we can actually apply it to the crop of players this year, we sort of get an understanding of who might be in contention this year.
Can I ask you about goals as well? Because it's often called a midfielder's award, but you've broken it down and told us why it's a midfielder's award. What happens, and we spoke about Charlie Cameron's 7 goals for the Lions last year compared to Lachie Neale's 20 touches, and Neale got the 3 votes, Charlie Cameron didn't. Is there a way that you can identify, does that happen often? Is that something that you put into your voting this year as well? When there's a key forward who kicks a bag and a midfielder who has 30 plus, who the 3 votes usually goes to? Yeah,
look, I didn't give Neale votes in that game in question where he got the 3. I don't think anyone really did.
Last year we're talking about.
Last year.
Yep.
I think Charlie Curnow, I did have either the 2 or Charlie Cameron, I did have either the 2 or the 3.
Yeah. Which would make sense to everyone who watches that game.
I think it's obviously it depends on the game, it depends on the result, it depends on the score. Like, it's one thing kicking 5 goals when it's 70 to 60, the final score. Kicking 5 goals when it's 120 to 110, it's very different. So there are a lot of factors, so it's a very hard question to answer. We did look at it a little bit last year as well in terms of what game performance results in votes. So we looked at when you have 30 disposals and a goal, how often do you get votes? What percentage of times that happened in the last 10 years? We've looked at that sort of stuff. It's a bit more hit and miss than you think, because I think there are a few more variables. But as I said, what does stand up, what clearly stands up in modern times, it's contested possession and clearance. So if we want to apply it to this year and have a look at who actually stands up. So there are 7 players that rank top 10 in both contested possession and clearance. It's Patrick Crips, first. He's first in both categories. Lachie Neale, 7th and 4th. Nick Dacos, 4th and 2nd. Marcus Bontempelli, 5th and 7th. Caleb Sarong, 6th and 3rd. Matt Rowell, 3rd and 5th. And the one that probably surprised a little bit, Luke Davies-Uniacke, 9th and 8th. Okay. So if history is anything to go by, one of those names I just mentioned will be winning the Brownlow Medal. Now, people might scoff at Rowell and Davies-Uniacke, but it probably shows that they fit the profile. I think Sarong, people look at Sarong as someone who, and Tom Green was 2nd and 11th. So Tom Green just missed by 1 spot. Green and Sarong, probably the 2 players that people look at as, they're going to be future Brownlow winners. They have that style. So we know, our eyes tell us, and we kind of know what wins the award. And as I said, one of those 7, if history is anything to go by, will win it this year.
Reminder, you can check out Jake's Premiership Standards, which has gone live on ESPN this morning. So do check that out on the website. We're going to move on, Jake, and we do need to rip through these team-by-team leaders. We've spoken about the top 10, but people out there will want to know about specific teams.
Always
maybe
popular,
the team
these markets.
They are always popular. Let's work our way through this alphabetically and who you've got topping each side's vote count, which is always an interesting watch. And sometimes there are surprises that are thrown up. So let's start with Adelaide. Who you got topping them?
Yeah, probably no surprise here. Jordan Dawson, I have him on 18. I think he'll win it reasonably comfortably from Isaac Rankin, who's on 10. He was fantastic when he played, but missed some games.
Yeah.
He has been a great pickup for the Crows. But yeah, I think Dawson will win this one reasonably comfortably.
Brisbane, no surprises?
No, again, no surprise. Lachie Neale will win this by quite a stretch. It's a race for second, and it probably goes to Hugh McCluggage. I've got him on 17 and Zorko on about 12.
You got Paddy Crips winning on 34, but is there another blue that's anywhere close to him?
Not really. Same sort of thing for a few of these first teams. Crips will win it. 34, I've got him, as you said, and then Sam Walsh second on 14.5. He missed the first 4 or 5 games of the season.
And he was good when he came back.
He hit the ground running. But his last 7 or 8 weeks, copped a bit of criticism, didn't look himself. So probably won't be polling too many votes in the back end of the year, especially because the Blues weren't winning many games. So. Yep. But Walsh should be second.
Anyone that watched Collingwood this year knows that they were just the Nick Dacos football club. So is that reflected as well in your voting?
I don't know what the answer to this is, but I reckon there's every chance that there could be the biggest gap between first and second at a club in Brownlow history. I think the gap could easily be 25 votes. Like I got Nick on 32.5. Josh on 7.
We should find this out,
but
actually.
Nick's ceiling could be 33, 34, 35.
Yeah.
We know that. So
25 vote gap, at least.
It could be a 25-point gap. It's certainly going to be a 20-vote gap, I think. I got Dacos, Crisp, 7 and 6, respectively. De Goey's got a few. But, yeah, it's going to be... Nick's probably going to outpoll the rest of the team, I would have thought.
Bombers,
Zach Merritt. Once again, another year, another Zach Merritt, Essendon top vote getter. Nick Martin, second will be an interesting one. I think Nick Martin will get it, but keep an eye on Jai Caldwell. So I've got Martin on 13.5 and Caldwell 11. Martin's a red hot favourite to win the Essendon without merit market. Caldwell, I think, will be a little closer than people expect, but yeah, just one to keep an eye
on. Freo's midfield, they all had a pretty big year as well, so they're quite tight here, despite Sarong leading them.
Yeah, Sarong should win this. 23.5, as we said before, in the top 10. Andy Brayshaw's second half of the year was really good. I've got him on 17.5, and we know he polls. He's a proven vote poller. We saw it a couple of years ago. And Hayden Young, shout out to your fine self. Your call at the start of the year. Hey, I've got him on 16 votes, which I think is probably about double what I would have picked at the start of the year. So, yeah, really good season for Hayden Young and those three. Yeah, they probably poll about 55, 56 votes.
You got the Cats, the Suns, and the Giants.
Yep, so Geelong will be a really nice race. I think Jeremy Cameron, I got him on top on 14, around what most predictors have. I think most predictors have him around the 14, 15, 16 mark.
Just to cut you off, this is so Geelong looking at your numbers here because they're hosting a prelim. They're a top 4 team this year, and there's no superstar who's going to get 20 plus votes.
That's it, and they have the most different players I've given a vote to or a potential vote to this year, which does highlight the spread that they're getting. And we spoke about this. We spoke about this last week. They're getting contributions from players we didn't expect. So Sam De Koning, Brad Close, Zach Guthrie, Tom Atkins, Tanner Bruin, Mitch Duncan, they're all maybe get a vote or one. So they've all had games where they've been maybe in the 3 best players on the ground. So, they're getting contributions. I think it's Cameron that wins it. Max Holmes was, you may remember, probably halfway through the year, we were talking Brownlow, and I think you asked me, what's something that might not surprise you? Smoky. And I said Max Holmes could top Geelong. And I think at that point, he was pretty good value. I don't think he does. I don't think he holds on. Cameron probably gets him. But yeah, he should be second. Tom Stewart, Patrick Dangerfield, probably third and fourth. Gold Coast is going to be probably the Noah Anderson, Matt Rowell show. Anderson, as we said before, is top 10 on 21.5. I think 10th. Matt Rowell, 17th. 17 votes, just a few spots behind. And Sam Flanders, really good year. Got him on 13 as well. But interesting with Flanders. It could be one of those ones where we see it catch up the following year.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if he ended up only polled about 5 or 6 as well.
Yep. And the Giants?
Yeah, and the Giants, Tom Green, 23, and then a drop to Lockie Whitfield and Jesse Hogan, both on 13.
So you got Hawthorn, Melbourne, and North Melbourne, and a couple of these could be pretty tight.
Yeah, so I think Hawthorn, I'm pretty confident with Jai Newcomb. Probably wasn't so confident until the last 2 games of the season. He went 3-3 almost certainly in the last 2 weeks, so I think that probably put it beyond doubt. I've got him on 17 ahead of Dylan Moore, 12.5, so fair gap there. Melbourne was trending to be another Christian Petrarca would top it. He didn't actually last year. He was robbed a couple of votes from Jack Viney. But Max Gawn probably gets him in the end. Obviously played more games. So I've got Gawn on 15 and Petrarca 12, and then a bit of a drop to Viney. And then North is the toughest one to pick, I think, this year, or maybe the second toughest. We'll get to the toughest in a moment. But I got Luke Davies-Uniacke 15.5 and Harry Sheasel 14.5. So real coin flip here. It's one I probably wouldn't be touching because I think it could go either way. I don't think there's value in picking it unless you have some hunch or you've got one finishing 4 or 5 ahead
Both
of the other.
of them had awesome seasons. You can see either of them.
They have.
Quite well.
I think LDU might have been a bit better in some of the losses and Sheasel better in some of the wins, which could tip me in favour of Sheasel a little bit more. But yeah, it's a really tough one to pick.
You spoke about some tight counts. Port Adelaide and Richmond are both going to be tight, but both at 2 different ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 4 Port players finishing on 15 plus votes, and none of them getting to 20. So that shows how close it's going to be. I've got Ollie Wines and Connor Rosie both 15, and then I've got Jason Horne-Francis and Zach Butters tied in the lead for 19.5. So really tight race here. Butters is the big favourite. Jason Horne-Francis, some good value, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then Richmond, as you said, other side of the spectrum, totally different. Might be a little bit low, but I've got Richmond, Tim Taranto, just 3.5 winning it. Tying it with Nick Vlosten, who I think he polled all his 3.5 in the first couple of weeks. Liam Baker, 3. Shea Bolton, 2.5. Dan Rioli, 2.5. Martin, 2. So, yeah, we might see a Richmond player get to 4 or 5, but I don't think any Richmond player is going higher than 5 votes this year.
Yeah, if you're a Richmond fan, don't bother tuning in to the Brownlow this year. 3.5 votes, and that's the most for their team. That is absolutely grim. Saints and Swans.
Yeah, so Rowan Marshall was one last year who I was very confident Jack Sinclair would top it last year, which he did, although I think Brad Crouch gave it a good shake as well. Crouch wasn't the one I was worried about. I was sort of a bit more concerned about Rowan Marshall. He only polled 3 votes last year, so it concerns me that I've got him on 17.5. We know rucks are a little tricky, but Marshall does check a lot of those boxes I was talking about before. He wins a lot of the ball, he wins a lot of clearance, he wins a lot of contested possession. So I think we can be safe in thinking that he's going to win it. Is he going to get to 17.5? Could be a touch high. 15's probably more. 14, 15 might be more around the mark. So if he is dropped down there, then Jack Sinclair could be a play at probably got him around 12. And Jack Steele, who we know polls pretty well every year, is on 10.
And the Swans are going to be very interesting to watch. A few of these boys had massive years. Heaney we already spoke about, but there's a couple other that are on his tail.
Yeah, I think they'll break the record, these 3, for most votes by a trio. Isaac Heaney, 28.5, as we said, was the favourite for a large stretch of the year to win until he was ruled ineligible. Errol Goulden, who was one of the shocks last year when he finished 3rd on 23.5, and then Chad Warner, absolute star, 19.5. So all 3 of them could finish 20 plus votes. I think all 3 of them will finish in the top 12. So tight-ish race, but I would think Heaney will get out on top. We'll probably know with Heaney in the first 4 or 5 rounds if he's getting the votes early.
Polls as expected, yeah.
If he's a little short after 4 or 5 rounds, then he's probably going to finish a little bit under. But I think we'll know early with Sydney and Heaney.
Eagles and Dogs.
Yeah, Eagles. I think Elliot Yeo will win this. He had some really good games, particularly in I think some of their earlier wins. I got him on 10, Jake Waterman 7, and Harley Reid on 6. And last one, the Dogs. Yeah, no surprise. Marcus Bontempelli, 28. Adam Treloar, I've seen a few people interested in the Treloar topping it just as a good value. I got him on 19.5, so a fair way behind. And again, a lot of the Bont, I think I probably have the biggest gap from what I've seen between those two compared to some of the other predictors. But I think there is definitely an edge that Bont gets. Like there are a couple of extra votes, as I said earlier. There will be around this count where he gets a 3 when we think he should get a 1, or he gets a 2 when we don't think he should get anything. And I think he and Neil, and so people like to knock Neil last year, but I think all 5 of the top guys are going to have a game like that where they overpoll in a game.
I think that's fair enough. You did touch on the fact that there are some surprises with the team-by-team voting. Every year it seems like there's a spanner thrown in the works somewhere. Where's that spanner going to be this year? What are some of the surprises that you think are going to happen this year? I mean, give us 3 things that people might not expect that you probably do expect this year.
I think Tom Green is a really fascinating player this Brownlow count. You might remember he was my prediction at the start of the year, Tom Green, to win it. I think he goes into the count with the greatest variance between his floor and his ceiling.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is I think we could get to 11 o'clock on Monday and Tom Green could finish on 14 votes, or he could finish on 27 votes, and I think you could look at it and be like,
fair enough. Yep.
I think he is always good, and he's had a few games where he's been fantastic and you get the votes, but he's never poor. And I think a lot of the games, I think with the Giants, Whitfield and Hogan I spoke about before, Toby Green didn't have quite the year. He's not going to get as many votes.
Josh Cully missed a few games as well.
Yeah, I think particularly if you look at the back half of the year, there are a lot of games. So from round 15 onwards. So I've gone with Tom Green, 0.51, 0.5, 1.5, 1.5, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. So that tells you...
Without dominating, he was good enough to poll.
And they won most of those games. That tells you he is in contention. He's probably in the 4 best players on the ground in every one of the last, 9 rounds.
Yeah.
I think he is... Sorry, 10 rounds. I think he could surprise. But at the same time, he could. A lot of those 1s could be 2s, and if they are, he'll rocket up there. But at the same time, the umpires might look elsewhere. I just don't know where they look. I don't think Finn Callahan's going to get the votes over him. I don't think, as Brent Daniels had some good games, but I think Brent Daniels has to have a really good game to get the votes. I think the umpires could get to the end of it, and it's a case of, as we said, Tom Green, front and centre, hands on the ball at the contest.
Yep.
I think Tom Green has the biggest variance, but I think if I have to lean one way, I think he's going to be up. I think he's going to overpoll. So I like the Tom Green. There are a couple of things I like the Tom Green over for that reason. It is a bit scary, but I think you can go for a top 5 finish with Tom Green, and I also think there is some value on him. I'll get to it in a sec. At the end, actually, I'll save it for the best bets.
We'll ask you for that. But Tom Green, that wouldn't surprise me either. Any other shocks?
I think I sort of touched on it before about the umpires catching up.
Yeah.
Lachie Neale. So we've spoken about it a couple of times already today. There was a bit of surprise and shock when he won it last year. Not because no one expected him to be around the mark. I think it was that one game that you said, and I don't necessarily disagree, flipped the result from Bontempelli to Neale.
Yep.
The umpires are aware of that. The umpires 100%... The players... I'm telling you right now, players look at these predictors. The umpires hear the feedback on what people say.
You reckon Paddy Crips is reading, I might win a Brownlow this
guarantee Patrick Crips, Nick Dacos, but they're all looking at the predictor. Not saying just mine. They're looking at all the predictors. Their families looking at it. Their friends looking at it. Their teammates looking at it.
It'd be hard to avoid.
You can't not look at it. You can't not go there. You know the games you played well in. And
would they be more nervous than you?
I think they would be. I just don't think they would say they are. But how could you not be? But anyway, I think the umpires also see what's out there.
Yep.
And I think there was a lot of criticism last year with that. And I think for that reason, there might be a little bit of a tweak on Lachie Neale. Now, I'm not saying it'll be a 20% pullback on the votes he's given, but it might only be a 2 or 3% change. And that could be the difference between him polling 28 votes versus 25 or 26, which means the difference between finishing third versus fifth or second versus sixth or something like that. So just be very wary with Lachie Neale, I think, for some of those markets that people might have him in. And the third thing is, it's never a great bet. I'm not betting on it. I'm not encouraging people to bet on it. This segment of this episode is with surprises we might see.
Yep.
I don't believe in we're overdue for things, because the reason we're overdue is because there's no reason for it to happen. But a tie wouldn't surprise me.
It hasn't happened in so long.
We haven't had it since. Well, we haven't had it happen since 2000.
Since you used to get 5 votes and win the award.
But we haven't seen it happen since 2006 on the night. Obviously, 2012 retroactively given to Sam Mitchell and Trent Cotchin from the Joe Watson Award. But we haven't seen it on the night in a long, long time. Every year, everyone makes the case it could happen. And look, every year, obviously, it could happen any year. I just think with it's feeling like there's 2 runaway leaders.
Yeah.
Both close. Some have got a Crips Dacos, some have got a Dacos Crips. They're both going to be around that 33,
It seems like
34.
most years the count is going to be quite tight, but the modern day with all these players polling 30 plus, and we do have more games now, but compared to the days where you were getting 20 votes and actually winning the award, it seems like back then it could have been a lot tighter and easier to tie the award.
The more games, the more votes, the harder it is to land on the same number. It's as simple as that. So yeah, it is getting harder. I'm not betting on it. I wouldn't advise anyone to bet on it. I think it's a bit of a crapshoot.
It'd be cool to see, to be
honest.
But
it would be cool. 100%. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's sometimes you get to the end of it, and if we get to the last round and they're calling it out, and we know that the others are too far behind, and if Crips gets a 1, he's going to tie with Dacos.
Yep.
I think it'd be cool to see that, particularly if it's the 2 players that I think most people would unanimously sort of say were the 2 best players of the season.
Yep. All right. Almost time to wrap this up, but before we do, we are going to ask you for some of your best bets for Brownlow night, Jake. Reminder again, gamble responsibly. Some of your best bets.
I'll start with what I was sort of getting carried away with before. Tom Green. Most votes last 8 rounds. I kind of highlighted before how he could finish. I've got him in the 3 or 4 best players on the ground in every single one of those last 8 games. He's $15 he's paying to be the highest vote poller in the last 8 games. I think that is really, really good value. Now, do I have him as the highest? No, I don't. I have Lachie Neale as the highest. But Lachie Neale's $150 in that market. $15 for Green is the value, and like I said before, only takes 1 game where Neale a 3 he gets a 1, and the reverse where Tom Green gets a 3 when is supposed to get a 1 or 2, and it changes it completely. So I think that's a really strong bet there. With Neale, I think the market I like for Neale is most 3-vote games. Now I know it kind of goes against what I just said before, but. That's just a hunch. That's just a caution, a general caution. When I'm looking at if I look at the whole year and look at who is the most likely, who has the most potential 3-vote games, it's Neale. Neale's got 9. There are 9 games at the end, he's the best player on the ground. Now, he might not be clear-cut 3. There might be others that are closer to him, but I give him the best chance to get the 3 in 9 games this year.
Yep.
The next best, Dacos, Crips, Heaney, all tied on 7. So 2 games is pretty substantial, especially because he's paying 6-1. It's pretty good value. And bear in mind, even if he and Heaney both finish on 8 or 7, you're getting half of that money. So you're still tripling on the 6-1. I think Neale for most 3-vote games is good value, and we see it year in, year out. He does poll the 3s. What else have we got? I think my favourite bet of the whole Brownlow revolves around one player. There are a few bets around him, but Jason Horne-Francis. So when the markets first came out, this was something you might have heard me talking about with people in the office. It was something that I thought...
You were chewing me ear off, mate.
I thought it was wrong. Now, it might not sound like great value, but I'm all about finding safe things that... There's no guarantee, gamble responsibly, but things that the least amount of risk for reward. And I think Jason Horne-Francis paying $1.50 to finish top 20 was extraordinary value. Now, it's no longer $1.50 with most bookies. It's shortened into
It probably makes sense as to why.
There is still one out there, so shop around. I'm not going to name, but it's 140, which I still think is very, very generous for Horne-Francis. Now,
he had a good year.
He had a fantastic year. I have him on 19.5 votes. This is the last 10 years. This is how many votes you need a poll to finish 20th. 13, 13, 16, 14, 14, 15, 10, 15, 13, 17. Again, I have him on 19.5. So in any, I understand the extra game, but bear in mind he missed a few games this year, so it's not like he's played the extra. So it's not as if he's played extra games, and that's what's going to get him over the line. In any year, 19.5, take off 2 votes off that, take him to 17.5. Any year of the last 10, that's good enough to be in the top 20. So I think he is in the top 20. I think it's still good value that can be found. He polled 16 last year, which we thought was overs. Butters and Rosie were better last year as a collective. They took more votes last year than they will this year. Horne-Francis is obviously better this year. I think he will. He'll go close to 20.
Catches the eye.
May even get.
Catches the eye with line breaking ability. Forward 50 entries, hits the scoreboard. It makes sense.
Yeah. So that's 140, 150 for top 20. I also don't hate the 450 you can get for him to finish top 10. Now, that's one that it's a bit more specky. Like it's probably not.
Nothing's
likely,
guaranteed,
but I think it's going to happen. I think it'll happen. 1 in 3 chances, as opposed to sort of the more like 1 in 5 that they're sort of saying. And the other one, which with Horne-Francis as well. Again, don't want to put all your eggs in the JHF basket, but for him to top Port Adelaide's vote count, Zach Butters is a massive favourite. I think he's about $1.15, $1.20. Horne-Francis $6 you can get on some books.
Yeah,
that's extraordinary value for him to top Port Adelaide. I think he is a massive chance to do that. Again, even if he ties, it's same as Neil with that $6. You're going to get triple still. And having spoken with Christian, Champion Data do their own Brownlow predictor, and shout out to him. We couldn't get him on today for a couple of reasons, but they do their own. Jason Horne-Francis, you know where they got him finishing?
Where they got him?
Third overall behind Crips and Dacos. So
there you go.
They were on the money last year with him polling those 16 votes, where I didn't expect that. So Jason Horne-Francis is the one, and the last one I'll leave you with is I like the favourite first 4 box. With Crips, Neil, Bontempelli and Dacos. As you can see from my votes that we went through before, my top 5 is a fair step ahead of the 6 to 10.
Yep.
But bear in mind, this price of $5.50 for the first 4 box, as in any order, does not include the ineligible player. So it doesn't include Isaac Heaney, who's in that mix as well. So put a strike through him. It's not including. So Isaac Heaney can't hurt you if he finishes 3rd. Crips, Neil, Bontempelli, Dacos, I think they make up the top 4 spots far more than 1 in 6 times. And that's a play I'd be going for as well. But as of course, gamble responsibly, have fun with it, and enjoy the night.
Thank you, Jake. And we do see firsthand the amount of work and effort that you do put into this. So well done for doing that. And
thank you.
Best of luck for Brownlow night. As well, to everyone at home, a reminder, you can check out Jake's Brownlow Predictor on espn.com.au/AFL, along with his Brownlow Standards, which has gone live now. So do check that out. And the boys will be back with the regular podcast on Tuesday. They'll be dissecting everything that happens on Brownlow night. So until then, thanks for listening, and they'll speak to you on the next episode.